heard of him. He's on your right, Grand Prix Oakland champion, Hall of Famer too, no big deal. He's playing Esper Control, Joe Demestrio, taking the Craig Wesco approach with green-white aggro. So here, I'm going to switch the deck list because no. I need the white cards, Matthias.
So a little bit of innovation. Huey is playing 2 Prognostic Sphinx this time in his list.
Okay.
That's actually a card I've been pretty excited about, and he said has been very good for him so far. He says it scries Sphinx's Revelations to the top of his deck. One thing, in black, this was a matchup that favored Esper. We will see if that is still the case.
I think Craig Wesco would disagree with you, sir.
This isn't the Craig Wesco style green-white aggro, actually.
You are correct. This is a little bit different. You've got a lot of 4s here in Demestrio's deck. Elvish Mystic, for example, not a card that existed. Fleecemane Lion also didn't exist. Now, Voice of Resurgence did, as did Loxodon on Smiter, but you'll find some newer cards here, too. Again, Scavenging Ooze, 4 of those you see Fleecemane Lion from Demestrio after that attack from 1. He's also got 4 Celestial Charm, 4 Advent of the Worm, 2 Unflinching Court, 2 Unflinching Courage, and 3 Rootborn Defenses.
So there were 2 flavors of Celestia decks at the Pro Tour. There was like the 1-drop centric Celestia decks, and then there were the 2s and 3s, the ones that were all about just playing really large creatures. Joe's deck seems to be more of that second kind, and those ones had some difficulty with Esper.
So we see Demestrio is off to a pretty good start here. Jensen with just a blue and white mana. Seems pretty innocent, but that does represent an Azorius Charm. And you know he's going to be building his way towards a Supreme Verdict if he can, as he's going to get in for 3 is Demestrio. Jensen says that's fine, go to 16. Both these players sitting at 4 and 1. As Demestrio is going to play a Temple Garden untapped, he's going to tap 4 mana on his main phase. And he's going to cast an Advent of the Worm right now.
Yeah. He doesn't want it to get dissolved, I suppose.
Well, I think the best time to play this is actually on Jensen's upkeep, because if he's going to have a counterspell, you're going to want to make him you're going to want him to syncopate it.
Right, you'd want to play this. You'd want to play this on Jensen's
because
upkeep.
This is something that doesn't happen very often, which is Detention Sphere could have targeted the worm, but Jensen decided, I'm actually okay. I'll take care of the Fleecemane Lion. But okay, so the worm play ends up working out here for Demestrio. How do you feel about that main phase adding the worm
I
as opposed to...
I think it should have been played on Huey's upkeep.
Okay.
I think trying to play around Dissolve is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. And as it turns out, it didn't really matter. The counter, Jensen chose to remove Fleecemane Lion instead, which I think is the card that's the biggest threat to him anyway.
Now this is what the green-white deck likes to do in this Esper Control matchup. It's got a creature in play, happens to be the biggest creature in its deck, an Advent of the Worm, and now it just passes. You can represent additional Advent of the Worm, so you can represent Supreme Verdict. Jensen's going to tap some mana. Here's the Supreme Verdict.
So the problem, Joe's going to go ahead and float a mana here, so now he is going to be able to cast Advent.
But the problem, as you were going to say...
No, that I'm going to stand corrected on that. I was going to say that he can't cast the worm. No, he can float mana through.
Sure.
So that's still fine.
So another 5/5 has replaced the old 5/5. You see Demestrio's hand. He's gotten Unflinching Courage and some other things here. Jensen just thinking to himself, I just got to get by one more big worm, and I might be okay. Demestrio's going to try to make that difficult here. So let's see what he's going to do. You see he's got another Elvish Mystic in his hand. I think the question he's asking himself right now is, can I just commit and just move in, put Unflinching Courage on this, put Jensen down to 4, and just hope he has nothing?
Probably
is that going to work?
The best value, if you want to ever play the Unflinching Courage, this is the best time to do it. It buys you, but really, could buy you a turn on your clock.
Yeah. The question is, how much better is Unflinching Courage going to get at this point?
This commitment is really good, unless Jensen has another Supreme Verdict, in which case it's really bad.
I think I got bad news, Matthias. The Hall of Famer has another Supreme Verdict.
I don't know. I mean, if Demestrio had a Rootborn Defenses, then he really didn't want to make that play. Otherwise, he just wanted to play into the verdict and ensure that he won in the situation that Huey didn't have it.
Well, he's able to rebuild his board. He's got a Voice of Resurgence and he's got a Forest. But now Jensen is sitting at 6 life. Detention Sphere says, get that out of here. Play Azorius Guildgate, pass that turn back. Demestrio's going to draw his card. I think it's time to use one of those Unflinching Courages. He decides that that's the case. Yep. Get in for 3, put Jensen to 3, go up to 21. Jensen's facing lethal next turn, but I've got a feeling he's probably got some things to do with his mana.
Well, yeah, there are plenty of answers he can have. He can Jace +1. Then he will be dead, though, to another Unflinching Courage. And the question is, does Demestrio have a second one? No, he's going to go ahead and go down to 1. And, yep, so that's only a 2/3 Elvish Mystic. Puts Jensen to 1. But remember, Demestrio, with 4 lands, 1 card left. 1 is actually a 5. because it's a green-white, 1 is a pretty safe place to be.
Yeah, no kidding. There's no reach here. So now Huey, you see him, he's going to buckle up now. He's at 1. He can take no more. So down goes Jace. Top 3 cards coming up. He's
3
got
lands.
an island, in plains, and looks like an Azorius Guildgate.
Yeah, he's going to have to fish again. He's going to have to play a second Jace and minus that guy, too.
Ugh.
He's a little flooded here. I mean, he gets to see 6 cards. It's pretty... if he doesn't find anything in 6 cards, you know, that's unfortunate for him.
1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's do this dance again. So Jace is going to replace itself. 3 more cards coming for Huey. 1, 2,
there
and
we go.
3.
Supreme Verdict and 2 lands. So on Prognostic Sphinx and a land.
So here's the thing. He hasn't played a land yet this turn.
He only has 3 lands in play. He can't take the he can't take the Sphinx. So Joe correctly puts the Supreme Verdict by itself, knowing that Huey does have to take it.
He's going to put those in the bottom. And
Huey's dead to
he
both.
has the island. Wow. All right. There's a verdict past the turn
He's
back.
dead to both Rootborn Defenses and Advent there, but Joe had neither.
Yep. Joe's going to play a force and pass the turn back.
Oh,
Huey
things are
is
getting bad
going to
now
turn
for
the
Joe.
corner now. Up goes Jace. Up goes Jace.
No reason
There's a
to
Mutavault and pass.
lose it just yet. I believe that Huey also has a Syncopate here.
I think this one's probably worth counting. You know, how much better is this Syncopate going to get? Huey decides not much better. Syncopate this for 4. Exile that Voice of Resurgence. As Jensen is going to untap now, he'll draw a card. Jace is going to go down. Top 3 cards coming. He's got an Essence Scatter. He's got an Aetherling. He's got a Last Breath. Joe says, "You want the win condition? Or you want to keep going?" I think he's going to. I think he says, "I don't want to keep going."
I mean, either pile would have been fine there.
Agreed.
You know, we don't need the you don't need the win con yet, because 1 Prognostic Sphinx was also put to the bottom. His last win con is the 2nd Prognostic Sphinx, so it's good to take the Aetherling, because otherwise there's a chance that last win con isn't for a long, long time.
He's going to separate his mana. It might be time to tap 6 for that unbeatable blue threat. He's also considering attacking with Mutavault, but he's going to tap 6 mana here. Here comes the 4/5.
Yeah, just go straight for it at this point.
You see Huey organizing his mana. Gonna play an Azorius Guildgate. He's gonna pass the turn back. Demestrio draws a card for the turn. It looks like another Voice. It's a little bit outclassed now.
Yep, Huey has that 8 damage machine online with Aetherling. Number 1 Revelation, which Huey's playing all 4, will seal this game.
Island the draw step. Jace ready to tick up to 2. Gonna tap mana on his own turn to cast Last Breath, of course, so the trigger does not happen with the Voice.
Yeah, and Last Breath is a great answer to Voice of Resurgence right now.
Really clean. Really just good, clean answer. I also like the fact that Huey has the opportunity in his blue-white control deck to be able to activate Mutavault and then target his own Mutavault Last Breath to be able to gain life if he needs to. It's a fun little interaction. He's going to come across 4/8 with Aetherling. We'll see if we're going to blink it out. We are. Make it go away. Make it come back. And Joe, it's going to be your play.
Yeah, he does that blink just in case Joe had an Advent of the Worm in hand. Joe does an experiment one, but this game is all but over. It looks like he's fallen 1 point short of the win.
But Huey's at 1. He's experiment 1.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
And Jensen just drew Sphinx's Revelation, which
no.
he has quite a few lands. Yeah, that's one of those things when he doesn't attack there. If you stop and think about that, if you're Joe, you're just like, oh, I know what that means. Yeah. Oh no.
So lights out, Guerrilla Radio.
Yeah. Why didn't you attack? Did you? Oh, okay.
Huey wins game number 1 over against Demestrio. Blue-white control up again against green-white aggro. Huey can breathe a sigh of relief. Joe saying, "I got you to 1, but 1's not none."
All right. So looking through their sideboards, these are 2 decks that that are very much expected in the new format. As much as you can sideboard in the dark, I think you would in this matchup. Jensen is playing Last Breath. He also has 2 Celestial Flares, and he has a Ratchet Bomb, all of which you may see in this matchup. Ratchet Bomb's pretty good against all the tokens that Joe creates. He also has 2 Glare of Heresies. That's the white hate card, which actually has been getting a lot of hype right now.
Now that one's a sorcery or an
It's
instant?
a sorcery,
Okay.
I believe.
I'm pretty sure it's a sorcery as
Yeah.
well. We'll bring it up at some point, especially if it does come up, but I'm fairly sure that Glare Heresy sorcery, exile target white
Exile's
permanent.
target white permanent actually has been a pretty fun to into a lot of sideboards. I think it's got a lot of hype out of the new set.
A lot of targets in the Demestrio's deck for that card, too.
Absolutely.
You see Fleece Mainline, you see Voice of Resurgence, you see Loxodon Smiter. We keep going down here. Those are the only ones, but those are worth killing.
One thing the new set has brought us is that there's a fair number of ways now that blue-white control deck can interact with Voice of Resurgence. It's still a great card against Huey's deck. But I don't think, in black it was almost unbeatable against his deck. It was just the best card in the matchup.
It does create a certain tension there. We take a look at Demestrio's sideboard here. He got Huey down to 1. He wants to get him a 0 this time. So what can he do to board in? He's got an additional Rootborn defenses. That means he'll have 4 after sideboard, which I like a lot. He's got 4 Mistcutter Hydras. Mistcutter Hydra is this new X green Hydra that's really good against control decks.
Well, it's good against blue. I kind of like the design of it. People were saying, why does it have to be uncounterable and protection from blue? And I was like, well, I mean, it's kind of just a kick in the face when you say, if you make a pro blue and then let them counter it, you're just like, that's not actually protection from blue. So this card can't be answered by blue. It's a hasty Hydra. It's not very mana efficient, so it's not going to be much bigger ever than 3/3 in Demestrio's deck. He's going to need to make it a 3/3 so it can play around Last Breath.
Yep.
But that said, there are only so many ways Huey can interact with it. He has to Supreme Verdict it for the most part.
As an aggressive player, I know my heart breathes a sigh of relief when you have something that cannot be Azorius Charmed. So that's not something to overlook.
Yeah, so it can't be Azorius Charmed. It has to be answered by Ratchet Bomb, which actually is a pretty good answer to it.
Yeah, actually
Ratchet
really,
Bomb's
really
a great
nice
answer. It can be Celestial Flared. It can be Supreme Verdicted, and that's about it.
Take a look at the other cards here. Sundering Growth, he could sideboard one of those in. 1 to populate, 2 to take care of detention spheres, if Demestrio wants to board that in. But, it is... There will be a lot of cases, I think, where that card will be stuck in his hand. He has a Scion of V2 Ghazi, which is more for the green-white mirror. He's got a Mending Touch, regenerate target creature, which I actually like.
Probably for this matchup, though, I'm a little... Maybe he just wanted a 5th Rootborn defense.
Yeah, I mean, that's a card that we saw on the sideboard of Bant Hexproof decks, to be able to keep their Geist of St. Trapped alive against these Supreme Verdict decks. And then he's got 1 V2 Ghazi Guildmage again, which I think is a card that is a trump card in the green-white mirror, but not so much for this matchup.
All right. Yeah, the V2 Ghazi Guildmage, I think it's that 4-mana populate that makes it so good in the green-white mirror. You can board it in here because it's a card that has to be answered. It can create an army by itself. I don't think games go so late that will actually happen in this matchup. I don't think he'll bring it in.
The longer the game goes, the worse it is for Demestrio, right?
Right. I mean, it does give him some action when the game goes late. When the game goes late, the problem is that Jensen will cast Sphinx's Revelation, and then it doesn't really matter what Demestrio is doing.
All right, so Demestrio is going to be on the play for this particular game. If you guys are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Matthias Hunt here in the booth. Star City Games Open Series has made it to Worcester, Massachusetts. If you guys do want to join in with us at SCG Live, hashtag SCGWOR on Twitter for your tweets. We'll be recognizing them all day. We do appreciate Michael Hatcher for his tweet last round. We'll be checking them all day long, and this new standard format is going to begin to unveil itself right before Pro Tour Dublin takes place. And we'll see what the best decks are leading into that tournament. So far, green-white aggro, we knew this would be on the map. We knew that Esper and blue-white control would be a thing as well. And Huey Jensen just barely hung on there in game number 1 against Joe Demestrio.
Green-white aggro was the deck that won the Pro Tour. And on top of that, it's gotten 2 great additions since the Pro Tour. It's gotten Scavenging Ooze and Fleecemane Lion. The deck looks really formidable. It doesn't have to run... Its curve is now so low. The only 3-drop in Joe's deck is Smiter. Outside of that, he's just playing Elvish Mystic, Experiment 1, Scavenging Ooze, Voice, and Fleecemane Lion, and a bunch of tricks. So the lowering of the curve of the deck, I think makes it very competitive against really any of the other aggro decks.
Okay, I'm with you. I can't disagree. Its creatures are very efficient. They're all very powerful. The thing about green-white that's a little bit scary is that it's a very obvious deck, and it's not the hardest deck to try to go about beating either. It's very clear what it's going to try to do every game. It's going to present efficient creatures quickly, and if you can stop those efficient creatures, you're going to be able to win. We saw Huey barely be able to do it the last game.
I mean, sweepers have always been excellent against green-white. There actually isn't much of a sweeper out of the new set, out of Theros.
Yeah, there really isn't, is there? I don't think there's. Is there? I don't think there's a Wrath Effect at all.
I do not believe the set has a sweeper in it.
That's good to know for limited. That's for sure. Can always extend there.
Yeah, I'm. Well, I mean, Elspeth Sun's Champion is kind of a sweeper.
Sure.
That's really pushing it, though, to call it that. Yeah, right now there actually is not a sweeper currently in Theros. Looks like Huey's on 6, by the way.
So Demestrio is going to start off here with an Experiment 1. Looks like that's going to grow. Fleece Main Line, trigger that. A little evolution. In for 2 goes Demestrio. As Jensen's going to untap that Azorius Guildgate. He's already underneath the gun.
He has an Essence Scatter for Demestrio's next play, but because of how efficient these green-white decks are, he's already facing down 5 damage a turn.
Let's see what Demestrio wants to do here. You see he's got at least another third, maybe potentially a 4th land in his hand as well. Looks like he's going to start by attacking. Not quite sure. One card he has to worry about right now, of course. Actually, 2. Azorius Charm is number 1. Number 2, I think, is Celestial Flare. 2 of those in Jensen's sideboard.
Yep. I mean, and worry about is, he can be aware that Huey might be playing them. I'm not sure that he plays around them at all, though.
Yeah. See, because the issue here is that if Demestrio plays around Celestial Flare, that plays right in Huey's hands, correct?
Exactly. When Huey's on a mulligan, I think he just plays fast until he sees a reason not to.
There's a Loxodon Smiter, there's an Evolution, and in for 6 comes Demestrio. That Essence Scatter that Huey Jensen has, no good here against the big dumb elephant. Can't be countered. Jensen moves down to 12. Gonna untap, pass the turn back. Looks like he may have drawn a last breath. Ugh. That one's not good either.
Nope, they're all 3s and 4s at this point. And I think that's the strength of the green-white deck, is that so many of its cards just are non-interactive. You can't counter them, you can't last breath them, if he has Reborn Defenses, you can't sweep them. They're very hard to deal with.
Detention Sphere going to take down that Experiment 1. Pretty loud declaration that Huey's got a Supreme Verdict hanging out in his hand, or at least he's trying to draw to one.
Yeah, he did, because he didn't Detention Sphere the Fleece Main Line.
Could Detention Sphere the biggest creature? What's that? I'm good, actually.
Well, the Smiter's probably the last thing he Detention Spheres. Remember, his game plan has to be to clear the entire board. So the things that will scare him is, an Experiment 1 lives through a Supreme Verdict, and Fleece Main Line, if Demestrio hits 5 mana, just becomes hexproof and indestructible. And this looks like a Supreme Verdict or Rootborn Defenses. I don't think Huey has the ability to play around it. He's going to actually just make a 4th land and pass back.
Not the worst place in the world to be if you're Demestrio. Are you going to pull the trigger maybe on Advent of the Worm? It looked like Demestrio didn't want to commit any more threats at all. See if it's Voice Resurgence. He's going to go with the Mist Cutter.
Yes, he has Mist Cutter Hydra.
Yeah,
that's going to be enough.
That's going to do it. So Demestrio is going to tie things up here 1-1 as we're going to move to a 3rd and final game. See if either player is going to go back to the sideboard. You see Demestrio is going to take a look, and Jensen will take another look as well. And while those players do that, here's the question I have for you, Matthias, because this is kind of a scary thing when you're playing a control deck. It seems like the aggressive decks in this format, which right now are green, white, and mono red, we don't know what other ones are going to crop up, they force the control player to have Supreme Verdict almost to a situation where it's Supreme Verdict or bust.
I mean, that is definitely one of the things they do. The cards are so efficient right now, and I mean, what Joe has post-board 8 cards that say can't be countered on them. That draw's really hard to deal with. I don't know if you have something that deals with it particularly.
Now, a lot of people mentioning on Twitter right now that, we were looking for another master removal effect. We couldn't think of one. Anger of the Gods is the one that you could think of.
Okay, so yeah, it's in red, so it doesn't overlap with the one from last set.
Yes, and also it's difficult because you can't play both. At least we don't think you can play both.
You can try to play both. It's really hard on your mana. I mean, one of the ways you beat green-white in the last set was, if you start with 4 Terminus, 4 Supreme Verdict, that was really good against green-white. There's not really a deck that can do that right now.
The other issue as well, there's not a deck that can really play that many master rule effects, but also there's a trade-off with Anger of the Gods, right? Where, it's really, really good, I agree, but, those Loxodon Smiter draws, that can really just counteract one.
How much would have it helped? We saw a board of a 3/3 Experiment 1, a 4/4 Smiter, and a 3/3 Fleece Main Line. Anger would have gotten the Fleece Main Line and turned the Experiment 1 into a 1/1.
Which clearly could have re-evolved at that point, and then you're fully aware that if the Anger of the Gods resolved, you can just recommit your threats because you don't have to worry about them all dying because there's no Supreme Verdict coming.
Right, because yeah.
There could be another Anger, of course, but there's no Supreme Verdict that just says, they're all out of here.
Yeah, and even then there are Rootborn Defenses in your deck. So you're right, you can play Anger, but Anger's not even a hard sweeper against this deck.
It's a difficult situation to be in, and I think that's for control mages, and of course, again, the Pro Tour's coming up in a couple of weeks here, guys, and, we're in week 1 of this constructed format. Everyone's trying to figure out exactly the best builds of these decks. Control decks are really, really hard to build right now because everyone's going from the shell from Dragon Maze, and it's, that's a great place to start, but you have to move past that. And I can't wait to see what happens when great control players really get their hands on these control decks moving forward.
I mean, everyone knew that green-white aggro was going to be a great deck coming out of the gates. It's got, as we saw from Joe, it's got some draws that control really can't answer, and it also has a great mono-red matchup. You know, red cannot, typically red aggro decks just really struggle against green-white creatures. So it's already got good matchups. I mean, it's got a passable matchup against control and a great matchup against red. So I think going into this tournament, people knew it would be a really strong deck. We don't know how strong it's going to be. You know, no one's actually just metagaming to beat it yet.
Yeah. Green-white is a deck, I think, that if you really do want to beat green-white, I don't think it's the hardest thing in the world to do.
There are cards like Lifebane Zombie that do exist in this format.
Yeah, that's for sure. So it looks like Joe's going to take a mulligan down to 6. Jensen happy with his 7. And again, Huey is going to be on the play, as we are being told right now on Twitter that there's also Merciless Eviction, which has the upside of getting rid of Monstrous. But we're looking at 6 mana Wrath.
It was a sweeper in block as well, so that's another one you can play. These games don't go long enough for that to count right now. It's fine as a secondary sweeper. So like what we were seeing, if you want to play more Wraths, so if Huey has the turn 4 Supreme Verdict, the thing about this matchup is he usually needs another Supreme Verdict really fast. And in that sense, Merciless Eviction is great at being your follow-up sweeper. So you can Verdict and then Merciless Eviction, but it can't be your first sweeper. That's not going to be, especially when you consider that there's those mono-red decks, which are even faster than green-white. Merciless Eviction can't be your first sweeper in those matchups.
Yeah. You're just going to be dead in the water.
Yeah,
it's
you're
just
not
so
going to make
scary.
it to turn 6. Ratchet Bomb is probably stands a better chance of being an early sweeper against red, but the Ratchet Bomb is really poor against green-white.
Yeah, you know, there's like this trade-off, right? Again, where, you know, which one do you want to beat if you're a control deck? Do you want to beat mono-red or do you want to beat green-white? Because you might not be able to do both. And then there's also, all right, you want to be this control deck that beats mono-red. Well, is your matchup in the mirror going to be good?
Exactly.
Can you do it all? Can you slice and dice? I'm not convinced that you can. But again, people are going right towards blue-white, and they're going right towards Esper. Maybe blue-red has something that people aren't really thinking of. It does have a card drawing spell now in Steam Augury. It does have a card like Is It Charm, which can line up correctly against certain decks, and some other removal spells. Don't quite know yet. And the card we haven't even seen yet is Mizzium Mortars, which lines up well against all of those decks.
And Mizzium Mortars saw a lot of play in block constructed, basically because it actually is still a 2-mana kill spell. Some of these other things like Magma Jet is a card that I'm not actually sure it's going to be great this time around, mainly because 2 damage just doesn't kill a creature anymore.
2 damage gets laughed at nowadays. If there were a Magma Jet here, for example, as Jensen's going to cycle that Azorius Charm in response to Voice of Resurgence, so no elemental trigger happens. We're going to see probably Detention Sphere get that out of here. Detention Sphere, a very important removal spell for this blue-white strategies.
Yeah, Joe with no 3rd land, he has boarded in this Mending Touch and has a pair of Advent of the Worms. But without a 3rd land, things are going to be difficult. The fact that Joe was not able to apply a lot of pressure meant that Huey had the chance to make this Jace right now.
All right, Jace, take that from the wolf. And, oh boy, Demestrio just has to pass the turn back, and this is a very difficult situation to be in. This is reminiscent of Block Constructed for me, as he's going to turn over 3 cards.
Oh, hey, a removal spell for the Fleeceman line. What do you know?
There's a Celestial Flare to go along with a Plains and a Hallowed Fountain.
Now, that's the worst thing that Joe wants to see, because what that means is Huey's like, no, I already have your lion covered. Yeah. I'll take the lands.
Yeah. I want to get everything covered. I want to get the Sphinx's Revelation land, and I want to put this game away pretty quickly here. So he's going to play his 5th land. You see him staring at a Supreme Verdict that doesn't even need to cast right now.
Cast it. Why cast it yet?
And see, this is the fear, because, you know, when Green-White's working on all cylinders, it's a very scary deck. But when it's having a mana issues here, you see a Mistcutter Hydra for 1, which Jensen, you know, again, best case scenario. This is where Green-White looks a little bit weaker.
Well, what Joe's trying to do here is, if now the only card that Huey had was a Celestial Flare, Joe will get to take down the Jace. He's hoping that if Jensen has no Revelation and no follow-up Jace, maybe he can keep him off some card draw and slow him down until Joe draws out of the land situation he's in. There's not a good chance that strategy works, but it's a strategy.
Yeah, it's a starting point. As Mistcutter's going to go into the Jace. Looks like Fleeceman Lion's going to go upstairs, which, you know, it's a start. You got to start
really,
somewhere.
Fleeceman Lion's going. That's.
You think Bull should go towards
bold.
Jace? All right, so this is going to go up there. Okay. Jensen says, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Demestrio was on 2 lands, and Jensen just Azorius Charm summoning to the top of his deck.
And now Jensen's going to play a Hollow
Oh
Fountain
boy, well,
untapped.
we know what that means, right?
That could be anything.
be about one card.
And for one, Jensen's going to go down to 19. I think it's time for a baby revelation as that line comes
He's
in.
actually at 17, but he'll take himself back up to 20 with this revelation.
So baby rev.
That's the one thing. Untapped shocked land go. We're like, oh, great.
The draws there were Plains, Attention Sphere, Celestial Flare for Huey. He's going to draw Plains for his turn as well. Plenty of cards in hand. Might cash in one of these Supreme Verdicts if he deems it necessary right now. Hall of Famer right now in the driver's seat.
And I think he's looking at that Supreme Verdict.
I like here, it's just take my 2-for-1, move on. Even though he's at 20, it just says, take my 2-for-1, let's keep going.
He resolved the revelation for 3.
Yep.
He doesn't need to get more card advantage at this point. He has another revelation in his hand.
Yep.
He can take 1-for-1s, and that'll be fine.
See, Glare of Heresy drawn for the turn. I think probably worth cashing in and take care of the Fleece Main line. Little 1-for-1 action. Exile that bad boy. Could have saved it for a Voice of Resurgence, but no need as you see the Glare.
Whatever is fine. Just 1-for-1. Just keep making 1-for-1s.
And there is a voice off the top there for Demestrio. Jensen says, it's kind of awkward, but okay, no big deal.
And Jensen's playing this game the way I really like it. He's not even though he could cast that Revelation for 5 or for 6, he's not doing it. He's just making lands. He's not going to cast that Revelation until Joe does something.
Yeah, until it's for the full amount and until he's given a reason to. He can just keep 1-for-1ing and then just say, boom, Revelation, and just bury him.
The only thing better than the Sphinx's Revelation is the Sphinx's Revelation you never have to cast.
Demestrio draws another card. It is not a land. He has a Sundering Growth in his hand. Looks like he's going to just cast that on his turn to try to destroy one of these Attention Spheres.
Yeah, he's doing that rather than casting it on William's turn because pretty much making Huey spend mana doesn't particularly matter.
And Jensen says, how about a Revelation for 6 in response?
Yeah, this way also Joe doesn't have to discard.
So Attention Sphere comes back. Voice of Resurgence back out. Here you see Jensen drew a dissolve, among other cards. The world is his oyster right now as he takes his untapped step and draws a card.
I mean, he's up 9-2 on lands. That's huge. That's really hard to come back from.
But we said before that the mana screwed opponent beats the mana flooded one. What?
Are
we lying? Are we lying to
the
people?
Number of cards in their hand. Because usually the mana flooded player has less cards in his hand. But Huey has more cards.
Jace Architect of Thought going to come in, going to tick up to 5, so -1, -0 when that Voice of Resurgence inevitably gets into the red zone. There's a Mutavault for Jensen's land drop. You're going to see him discard 2 lands, kick it back to Demestrio, who draws a card, and it does not look to be a land yet again. In comes the Voice towards the Jace.
This game's going to go as long as Joe wants it to go.
How long can he hold on? Is that the question?
I mean, Huey's going to block with Mutavault. Joe will cast Mending Touch. He'll probably let that resolve, because why not?
Huey gives it a rather sarcastic thumbs up. That's fine with me. There's an Experiment 1. Going to pass the turn back. Is it worth an Essence Scatter?
So it regenerated.
So what ended up happening here is that he attacked the Jace. Mutavault got activated to block. The Voice is a 1/2 because of the Jace Cumberstone effect.
Right, it's a 1/2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he actually has to use the Mending Touch to make sure that the Voice does live.
So Joe kind of forgot it was a 1/2?
Yeah, I mean, he was just attacking the Jace anyway.
Yeah.
So, I think he may have forgotten. I mean, it's unfortunately kind of hopeless for Joe at this point.
I mean, like I said, this game's going to go as long as Joe wants it to go.
Yeah. Jensen going to play the Attention Sphere on the Voice and pass the turn back. You see the Mutavault out there ready to play defense.
Joe still hasn't drawn a third land. The lands are now 2 to
2 million. That's what it looks like.
2 to 11 in Jensen's favor. Now 2 to 12.
Jensen says, let's tick this on down. Where's my Aetherling? I just want to get this game over with. Dissolve Versus is the choice of the day for Jensen. Dissolve's going to go to the grip. Might as well. Another counter spell with all those lands in play. Play an island, kick it back.
No. Joe put in place like, it's got to be a land. And it was a land, and then his deck taunts him by giving him a
quite
Guild Gate.
yet, Mr. Demestrio. You cannot play Magic just yet.
You must wait another turn.
Jensen moves in Azorius Charm. He's going to cycle that. Again, he's just looking for a win condition at this point. Draws an
another
island.
land. He's in danger of missing his land drop that turn. That's not even being sarcastic. You actually don't want to miss your land drop. Land drops are the best.
Hey, well, here's Jace to help that out. Hey, there's 2 of them, and a Supreme Verdict.
I'd take the 2 lands.
Unfortunately, I know you're not being sarcastic.
Why? Lands are sweet.
Lands are kind of sweet. So are Wrath of Gods.
Yeah, he has like 2 of them in his hand. Okay, he can have a third.
How about
it
a third one?
doesn't matter what he takes, but I I don't know. That's fine. They're all the same.
Island going to come on in.
I don't think there's a decision that Huey can make that loses him this game.
It's going to be a tough
he'd
one.
have to make a lot of really subpar decisions.
That's
right.
probably...
Yeah, so wait, he took the Supreme Verdict and then he discarded it? Yeah. That's just a taunt.
Yeah.
I take nothing.
You see Demestrio does draw a Plains. He is going to cast a Loxodon Smiter and evolve that Experiment 1.
Sure. Watch out. Here comes the aggro.
2/2 Experiment. Let's see what Jensen drew for the turn.
That was Etherland.
You see he's going to count all of his lands, and that was the 4/5. Up goes the Jace. Here comes the Glare. Get the Smiter out of here, says Jensen. He's going to move the Mutavault back to the mana row, tap 6 lands, and now a 4/5 surprise.
Deftly, he's left up only blue mana.
Yes.
So Joe will need 6 kill spells for the Etherling to get it, as Huey has 5 blue up. Which is not actually a thing, that he doesn't even play 6 kill spells in his deck. And Huey, with more dissolves, really, than Joe has turns left.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is in the school of the never scoop philosophy.
Which is, I think, a good thing. Like, it's good practice. We see Reed Duke do this all the time. There's no reason to concede. Make your opponent kill you. You know, there is the off chance that they do make a mistake. These things have happened before. They will happen again as the Etherling does get into the red zone. I think it's pretty unlikely, considering the opponent that he's playing against.
For me, in this tournament, it has to do with, have I eaten lunch? If I haven't eaten lunch and I'm like, hey, there's 20 minutes left in the round, I'd scoop this. Otherwise, I'd do what Joe's doing.
Jace going to reveal Detention Sphere, and Azorius, Guild Gates,
spells.
and a Ratchet Bomb.
Gravy, more kill spells. The Ratchet Bomb's actually the best card here because it deals with Advent of the Worms. But to be fair, at this point, Huey can just race Advent of the Worms with Etherling.
Yeah.
Let's say he didn't have Etherling in play. The Ratchet Bomb's the best card.
I'm inclined to agree with you. You see the separation here? So Detention Sphere is going to go to the bottom. Bomb and Land are going to go in the grip. And Jensen going to maneuver some lands around here. 2 of them for the Ratchet Bomb. As you did mention, it will take care of Advent.
Great magic, by the way.
Okay.
I like that Huey's plan was to make lands for 13 turns and then casually win the game.
I know this is a dream come true for you.
I like the lack of... I like just how simple it is. It's so elegant.
Yeah.
What's your strategy? Play lands. Draw cards. What cards you draw? Lands. Well, I have to keep playing them. You know.
You see, Jensen's gonna bomb the token right away instead of giving Demestrio the opportunity to untap. Reason for that, of course, is because of Rootborn defenses. He does not want Jensen to. He doesn't want Demestrio, to just pump out another 5/5 and have his Ratchet Bomb basically end up being useless or card disadvantage.
So sometimes when I play Control, one of the mindsets I like to have in this situation is kind of what I call being completely paranoid. So when I'm in Huey's situation here, I would think of like, okay, what has to happen for me to lose? All right. So here's what's gonna happen. He's gonna make a worm token. Then he's gonna Advent populate it. Then he's gonna, but even though I can race that, he's gonna play a Tristani. He's gonna start gaining 5 life per turn. Then I won't be able to race him with Etherling. He'll keep Rootborn defensing, and then he'll aggro me out.
Demestrio has finally tapped out. He's thrown in the towel, as Jensen has.
Is that
as
all
they
4
say,
Advents?
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
but
man.
I mean,
that card's
Demestrio
good in this matchup, right?
He had 4 of those, and Jensen had 4 of everything else. So that's going to give Huey Jensen a W. He's going to move on to 5-1 with blue-white control over Joe Demestrio, playing green-white aggro. Hall of Famer still in it to win it.